الله النور بسم الله النور بسم الله النور بسم الله النور بسم الله نور النور بسم الله النور.
All right, get ready, because we're going deep today, really deep, diving into some seriously mind-blowing concepts from Al-Kafi, and specifically, the book on Oneness of Allah.
And even if you think you know this stuff, these chapters, chapters 18 to 23.
Right, Hadiths 323 to 363.
Exactly. They really get to the essence of Allah, exploring his attributes and nature in a way that I think, well, it's deepened my understanding. I bet it will for you too.
Okay, let's jump in. Chapter 18, Hadith 323. It's all about Al-Samad, which, for our listeners, is one of Allah's names mentioned in the Quran.
Right, and Imam Abu Ja'far al-Thani, that's the second Imam, he gives this amazing interpretation of Al-Samad. He says it means the Lord to whom one turns for help, big or small.
I love that. It's so simple, but so powerful. Right away you can see it's not just a physical description. It's about Allah's role.
As the ultimate refuge, yeah, like the one we turn to for support, no matter what's happening in our lives.
And the text actually gives these real-world examples, to kind of bring this abstract concept down to earth. Like how the word al-samad was used back then. It could describe someone aiming at a target and hitting it perfectly.
Or a master craftsman.
Yeah. Or even a stronghold that can't be breached.
It's like they're trying to show us how this connects to Allah's position, He's the ultimate aim, the unwavering focus.
Right, the one we should be striving for amidst all the chaos of life.
Exactly.
Okay, wow, that's a lot to think about already. But let's keep going. Chapter 19 gets into something that I think a lot of people have questions about Allah's presence.
Yeah, and this is where it gets really interesting. You see, Hadith 325, which comes from Imam Abu Ja'far, it challenges the idea that Allah physically comes down from heaven.
Which some people believe.
Right. But he emphasizes that Allah isn't limited by space, that he transcends that.
It says, Allah's perception isn't bound by near or far. He's present with his creation without being in any physical place.
And they give this analogy of a creature moving, like it leaves one spot empty and fills another, but Allah's presence isn't like that.
So it's not about physical location. It's something more than that.
Way more. And Hadith 327, also from Imam Abu Ja'far, it makes this really bold statement. It says, believing Allah is contained within something, like anything, is basically atheism. It's a big deal.
Wow. That's a powerful statement.
It is, and it really underscores how transcendent Allah is, that his existence goes beyond any limits.
So even if we can't pinpoint where he is, he's still present.
Exactly. And it's not for us to box him in with our limited understanding.
Now, we also see this idea of Allah's dominion over the throne in this chapter, specifically Hadiths 329 to 332.
And again, it's not about a physical throne. It's about something much greater.
It represents ultimate control, right? Like his rule over all creation.
Exactly. And that's a concept that goes way beyond our understanding of physical space.
Okay, my head is spinning a little, but in a good way. Let's keep going. What's next?
Chapter 20 takes us into some deep waters. Al-Arsh, the throne, and Al-Kursi.
Oh, this is a fascinating one. It starts with this dialogue, Hadith 335, between Imam Ali and a Christian scholar, this guy named Jathlik.
I love this hadith. It's so thought-provoking.
Right. Jathlik asks this really pointed question. Does Allah carry the throne? Or is he carried by it? Like, how can you even ask that?
I know, but Imam Ali's response is brilliant. He explains that Allah, through his greatness and light, carries everything, including the throne.
It's not about a physical act of carrying, right? It's about his light, the light that illuminates the hearts of believers.
That's the key. And then get this, the hadith describes the throne as being carried by scholars, by those who carry Allah's knowledge.
Oh, I love that. So it's about knowledge, about understanding.
Exactly. It's about carrying that light of understanding and sharing it, upholding the weight of divine truth.
It's a reminder that knowledge is powerful, it's precious.
It is. And then Hadith 336 comes in and clarifies even further. It says the throne isn't actually Allah, but a manifestation of his knowledge and power.
So it's a symbol, a representation of his all-encompassing knowledge.
Yes. And then, as if that wasn't enough, we get introduced to Al-Kursi in Hadiths 337 to 339.
Yeah, this one's a bit of a mind-bender.
It is. Al-Kursi is described as containing everything, including the heavens and the earth. Try wrapping your head around that.
I know, it's like trying to imagine infinity.
Exactly. And it emphasizes that nothing exists outside of Allah's knowledge and power. Mind-blowing, right?
It really is. Okay, and then we get this final image in Hadith 341 of water carrying Allah's religion and knowledge even before creation.
Oh, yeah, that one always gets me. It's so poetic and profound.
It points to the idea that these things, religion and knowledge, they existed before the world as we know it.
Exactly. They're primordial, eternal.
It's like a glimpse into the very foundation of existence. Wow, I think I need a minute to process all of this.
Me too. But that's what makes these teachings so powerful. They push us to think, to question, to expand our understanding beyond what we thought possible.
Okay, are you ready for more?
Always. Bring on chapter 21.
This one touches on the concept of al-ruh, the spirit, in relation to Adam and Jesus.
And right away, in Hadiths 342 and 343, there's a really important distinction made. They state that this spirit, even when it's referred to as the spirit from him, is still a created thing.
Right, so even though it's from him, it's not Allah himself.
Exactly. It's a separate entity.
And then we get this really interesting analogy in Hadith 344, comparing the spirit to the wind. They even say the word ruh comes from ri, which means wind, because of its motion.
But remember, that motion isn't like physical movement. It's more about the spirit being active, constantly in a state of being.
It's like the wind is always there, even if we can't always see it.
Right. It's using something we know, something we can feel, to point towards something much deeper.
All right, on to chapter 22. This one dives headfirst into Allah's oneness, which is, of course, one of the most important concepts in Islam.
Absolutely. And it starts strong. Hadith 346 has these excerpts from a sermon by Imam Ali where he basically says that no words, no descriptions can truly capture Allah.
Like, we can try, but our language will always fall short.
Always. Then Hadiths 347 to 351 go into different aspects of Allah's oneness, emphasizing his existence beyond time and limitations, and his creation being an act of will, not need.
And they talk about his knowledge encompassing everything, past, present, future. It's mind-boggling.
It is. And then there's this one, Hadith 349, where someone asks Imam Ali if they can see Allah.
What did he say?
He said our physical eyes can't see him, but our hearts can see him through faith.
So it's about inner vision, not physical sight.
Yes. And the chapter ends with this powerful letter from Imam al-Rida in Hadith 351. He stresses that really knowing Allah starts with understanding his oneness and not trying to limit him with our words and categories.
I feel like that's a theme we keep coming back to, that Allah is beyond our human attempts to define him.
It is. And it's so important to remember we can explore, we can learn, but ultimately we have to acknowledge that his true nature goes beyond anything we can fully grasp.
Okay, ready for our last chapter for this part.
Let's do it. Chapter 23, a collection of unique perspectives.
Right, it starts with this verse from the Quran in Hadith 353 that says, everything will be destroyed except God. And it can be confusing, but Imam Abu Abdullah clarifies it.
He explains it's not about a physical face of Allah surviving.
Right, it's about the aspect of Allah that endures through obedience to his commandments. So our connection to him is what survives.
That's powerful.
And then there's this idea in Hadith 355 that all al-Bayt are the faith of Allah.
Yeah, and that can be a bit confusing at first, but it's metaphorical. They represent Allah in the world, guiding people towards him.
So they're like guides, helping us connect to Allah.
Exactly. And Hadith 356 says, the most blessed names of Allah are linked to al-Bayt, highlighting their importance as guides.
So in a way, by learning about and following them, we get closer to Allah.
That's the idea. And then, get this image, in Hadith 357, it describes al-Bayt as Allah's eyes, tongue, and hands.
Wow, that's beautiful. It shows how central they are.
Right. Through them, blessings flow and the world is sustained. It's profound.
I love those poetic images.
Now, Hadith 358 talks about Allah's anger and happiness, and it says these emotions are manifested through al-Bayt. It's not like Allah's experiencing these emotions in the way we do, but they're expressed through their actions.
So again, we see al-Bayt as a conduit.
Exactly. And then we end this section with a really intriguing statement from Hadith 362. Imam Abu Jafar calls Prophet Muhammad the hijab of Allah, which means curtain or veil.
That's interesting. A curtain usually hides something.
Right, but the point is, understanding the Prophet helps us understand Allah. He's like a guide, revealing and concealing at the same time.
Okay, I can see how that's a deep concept.
It is. It leaves us with a lot to ponder.
We've covered so much ground today. I feel like my brain is about to explode.
That's the beauty of it. These teachings, they're not meant to be easy. They're meant to challenge us, to inspire us.
And to leave us wanting more.
Exactly.
I think that's a good place to pause for now.
Yeah, we've got more to uncover in the next part.
Yeah.
But let all of this sink in. Go back and revisit those hadith.
Absolutely. And while you're thinking about all this, consider this. Hadith 363 says that wronging al-Bayt is like wronging Allah himself.
Heavy stuff.
Right. So think about how that impacts how we treat others, especially those chosen by Allah.
I'll be thinking about that too.
Okay, we'll be back with more soon. Be sure to join us then.
Looking forward to it. Back again for more from Al-Kafi's book on Oneness of Allah.
Picking up right where we left off. Still trying to wrap our heads around these mind-blowing concepts,
Yeah.
about Allah, his attributes, how he relates to creation.
Right, and last time, remember that question we ended with about Hadith 363, the one from Muhammad ibn Yahya, how if you harm al-Bayt, it's like harming Allah himself.
Yeah, heavy stuff. It really makes you think about how we treat everyone, especially those considered to be, representatives of Allah.
It does. And Imam Abu Jafar in that same hadith, he goes on to talk about this Quranic verse. They did not wrong us, but they wronged themselves. He says, talking about the children of Israel.
So how does that connect to the idea of harming al-Bayt?
Well, he's saying that Allah, in his absolute greatness, can't actually be wronged. But because al-Bayt are so closely connected to him, harming them, it's like harming Allah.
So their authority is an extension of his authority.
Exactly. And then he brings up another verse from within this hadith that says, only God, his messenger, and the true believers who are steadfast in prayer and pay alms while they kneel during prayer are your guardians. And Imam Abu Jafar says this is referring to the imams from al-Bayt.
Highlighting their role in guiding us.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like they're the ones who can really help us understand Allah's will.
So it's not just about avoiding harm. It's about actively seeking guidance from them, recognizing they're appointed by Allah. Their teachings can lead us to a stronger connection.
That's it. It's like having a direct link to the source of truth.
And that brings up an important point. We've been talking a lot about al-Bayt and their significance, but their purpose is to guide us towards a deeper understanding of Allah.
Right. They're the bridge, connecting us.
Like they're saying, look, follow me. You don't want to miss this. But the ultimate destination, the awe-inspiring thing they're leading us towards, it's Allah's oneness.
That's a great way to put it. So let's shift gears a bit. Back to Allah's attributes. We've discussed presence, dominion, the connection to al-Bayt. But how do we reconcile those ideas with all the limitations we try to put on him?
Right, we keep coming back to that. We use our human experiences to try to understand Allah, but he transcends all of that.
He does. The hadith make that very clear.
He's not bound by space, time, any of the categories we try to fit him into.
It's like trying to capture the wind in a photograph. You can see its effects, but you can't capture the wind itself.
So if we can't pinpoint where Allah is, if he's not limited by space, how do we even approach this idea of oneness? Our minds are so used to thinking in terms of duality, separation.
That's where faith comes in, trust. We have to accept that we can't fully comprehend. Surrender to the mystery. The hadith, they give us glimpses, metaphors, stories. They illuminate different aspects, but we can't grasp it fully with our intellect alone.
It's like those old maps they used to have, the ones with dragons and sea monsters at the edges. We have our understanding, but beyond that, it's uncharted territory. And the only way to explore it is through faith.
And remember, even as we explore, it's not about conquering the unknown, it's about surrendering to it, recognizing our limited perspective.
So the more we learn, the more we realize how much we don't know.
Exactly. But that's the beauty of it, isn't it?
It's humbling, but also exciting. It keeps us searching, keeps us growing.
It does. And that's what these teachings are all about. Inspiring us, keeping us on this path of seeking, deepening our connection to Allah.
It's like we have a compass, not a map. It points us in the right direction.
Love that. And remember, every step we take, every thought, every act of seeking brings us closer to that ultimate understanding of his oneness.
It's a journey, a lifelong pursuit of knowledge, unfolding. And every layer we peel back, it fills us with more awe and wonder at the immensity of it all.
Now let's get back to the text itself. Look at some specific examples of how these hadith, how they challenge our thinking. Give us these profound insights.
One of the things that keeps coming up is this idea of negating attributes from Allah, which is strange at first. Normally you describe something by its qualities, its attributes.
But we're not denying that Allah has attributes. We're saying our human language, our concepts, they can't capture them adequately. When we say Allah is all-knowing, for example, we're trying to grasp something that goes infinitely beyond our own experience of knowledge.
So it's about acknowledging the limitations of our language.
Yes. And that's why negation is so important. By saying what Allah is not, we start to clear away the misconceptions, the limitations our minds try to impose. We approach a purer understanding of His transcendence.
It's like sculpting. You chisel away at the stone to reveal the statue inside, removing the excess to get closer to the true form.
I love that. And remember, this process, it's not just intellectual. It's about cultivating awe, reverence.
The more we realize how far beyond our comprehension He is, the more humility we feel.
Like standing at the edge of the Grand Canyon, feeling that sense of awe that's beyond words.
We're humbled, but also inspired to explore more.
Exactly. And that sense of awe is essential for a truly meaningful relationship with Allah.
Recognizing He's the ultimate mystery, the source of everything.
And that understanding Allah's oneness, it's not about a destination, it's about embracing the infinite journey, constantly seeking, learning, growing.
So we're not alone on this journey.
We're not. We have the guidance of the Quran, the Prophet's teachings, the wisdom of the Imams.
They're like beacons of light leading the way.
And as we move forward, let's hold on to that sense of wonder, that thirst for knowledge.
Keep exploring, keep seeking.
Because within these pages, we find a path to a deeper relationship with Allah.
A journey worth taking.
Absolutely. It leads us closer to that radiant truth of His oneness, a truth that can illuminate our entire lives.
Okay, let's get into some specific examples.
Yeah, one thing that really stands out in these teachings is how they talk about things that seem paradoxical to us. Like Allah's presence without location, His knowledge that goes beyond time, how His attributes are both distinct from creation but also manifested through it.
It's like our minds have to stretch to accommodate these ideas. How do we make sense of it all?
I think the key is recognizing our limitations. We're trying to grasp concepts that are beyond our human experience. The Hadith give us glimpses, metaphors, ways to approach these truths. But they don't offer simple answers. They invite us to think, to question, to cultivate awe and humility.
So we have to embrace the mystery. Admit that we can never fully grasp His vastness, but keep seeking anyway.
Exactly, because the seeking itself is part of our growth.
And that seeking, that grappling with these ideas, it can be transformative. It can change how we see things, deepen our faith.
It can. Now, as we head into the last part of our deep dive, I want to think about how all of this impacts us, how we see ourselves, our purpose, our relationship with the divine. What do these Hadith tell us about that?
And we're back, wrapping up our deep dive into Al-Kafi's book on Oneness of Allah. Phew. Parts 1 and 2 were intense. So much to think about.
Yeah, these Hadiths, they really push you to expand how you think about everything.
Right, but that's what makes them so amazing. Those moments when you realize how much you don't know. It's like a whole new world opens up.
It really is. And in this last part, I really want to focus on how these teachings affect us personally. How we understand ourselves, our purpose, how we relate to Allah.
Yeah, let's get into that. It can't all be just, abstract concepts. There's got to be some practical stuff in here too, right?
Oh, absolutely. One thing that jumps out at me is this theme of interconnectedness. Remember how we talked about harming Al-Bayt being like harming Allah?
Yeah, how their authority is tied to His.
Right. It shows how connected everything is. Our actions, they have these ripple effects. We're not just isolated individuals,
We're part of something much bigger, tied to each other, tied to Allah.
And that connection isn't just about how we treat others. It's about recognizing how deeply connected we are to Allah ourselves.
We often forget that, don't we? We think of ourselves as so separate.
We do, but these hadiths paint a very different picture.
They show that we're constantly connected. His presence is in everything. Our very existence, it points back to His power.
Like in Hadith 357, where it describes Allah al-Bayt as Allah's eyes, tongue, and hands.
Oh, yeah, that one.
It shows their role as intermediaries, but also I think it hints at something deeper.
Like Allah's attributes are shown through His creation, that His actions are reflected in how the universe works.
That's it. It's like Allah is the artist and the world is His masterpiece.
And we're all brushstrokes, adding to the overall beauty of it.
Yes. And al-Bayt, they're like the masterstrokes, the ones that bring certain details into focus, helping us to see the deeper meaning.
Now, this idea of Allah's attributes being shown through creation, it's a little hard to grasp, isn't it? I mean, we've been talking about how He transcends our understanding.
I know, it seems contradictory. But it's about remembering that Allah's transcendence doesn't mean He's absent from the world. It means He's present in a way that's beyond what we can comprehend.
Okay, so how do we understand that?
Think of the sun. Its rays reach everywhere. They bring light and warmth. They sustain life. But the sun itself, it's this massive, distant, powerful entity.
I get it. Allah's light, His knowledge, His power, it permeates everything. But He remains the source, the ultimate mystery.
Exactly. And so we come back to that idea of embracing the mystery, accepting that our human minds will never fully grasp it, but we keep seeking anyway.
We have to trust in what we can't fully understand.
And that trust, that surrender, it's how we experience the beauty of our relationship with Allah when we let go of the need to know everything. That's when we feel His presence most strongly.
It's like, falling in love. Sometimes you can't explain why you're drawn to someone, but you trust in the feeling.
That's a great analogy. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I just feel this sense of gratitude for all the wisdom in these hadith. They've given us so much to think about.
They have. They've challenged us, inspired us, left us with more questions than answers, really.
And that's okay, because searching for understanding, it's a lifelong thing. It's about the journey, the striving to get closer to Allah.
These hadiths, they've given us a peek into the depths of Islamic thought, and they've given us the tools to keep exploring.
So let's keep that sense of wonder alive. Hold on to that thirst for knowledge, that desire to connect with Allah.
Let's take these teachings and let them shape how we see the world, how we treat others, our relationship with the divine.
Because the goal ultimately is to change our hearts.
And that's a goal worth striving for, don't you think?
Absolutely. May this journey of understanding continue to illuminate our paths, bring us closer to that truth of Allah's oneness.
Thank you for joining us on this incredible deep dive into Al-Kafi. Until next time, keep seeking, keep exploring, and keep that light of faith burning strong.